Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of the new season. The 2023-24 FPL season is almost here. I'm your host, Zofa, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, Late Riser and Prus. How are you doing, guys?
Doing good. Season 4? Season 4's off. Did you think we'd make it into Season 4? Just talking about the game 4 years ago. I wasn't fully sure, but I don't think the juices ever stop flowing, and I don't think the game is ever going to leave us. However, it may be designed. So here we are, and I'm bloody excited. What are the odds, you reckon, for an in-stream FPL launch? I reckon they're pretty high.
I'd say I'd give evens, not below evens. Pretty high.
I mean, it has to happen today, right? So
yeah, all the clubs
I
are
would
done.
say, yep.
I mean, so why don't you just introduce our summer signing for the season?
Does he need any introduction? We already have a line of people queuing up for autographs. I heard outside.
Yeah,
I mean,
we got a helicopter view of what people thought of the signing yesterday on Twitter. So I don't know if the chat has any more burning questions with regards to this one,
Yeah.
but yeah, man, we're excited to have you on board. We're expecting you to do all the heavy lifting on the pod. Zoff and I are going to take complete backseat, leave all the research and all of that to you. So, Pras, the stage is yours, man.
Yep. I just need to
man,
get a
look,
file or get to the chopper. Sorry.
I mean, helicopter views, everything is now obviously is here, and look, the pleasure is on mine. I can't tell you how happy I am to sort of join here more regularly. Uh, I mean, I've been listening for 4 seasons, so this is the first time I'll be actually on the pod. You're saving me an hour of work because I had to listen to this every week, and now actually I'll be here. So look, you guys have always have said that you've been my favorite podcast, and to
We were the
actually
first
join it
one,
is
right? Also, where you appeared, the Manchester
first one as
United
well.
one.
Yeah, it comes a full circle. That triple game week for Man United, that was the first time I ever joined a video. So here we are.
Fantastic. How's your summer been, guys?
I had a nice little break. I haven't even seen match of the day for game week 38 yet. Like once the game ended,
Yeah.
I was switched
Shut
off,
down.
and how I think the juices have flown only in the last week or so. Because with FPL launching the prices, you're starting to think about the game. You're beginning to think about the game, and yeah, I'm excited. I think that complete switch off from FPL has helped bring back the juices.
It's perfect, right? All of June is gone and now we're in July. And the whole drip feed of prices, I've enjoyed it. Even though the whole, the launch they were planning with us on Friday, that didn't go to plan. They relieved some good key prices. What are your thoughts initially, Pras, and how was your summer?
Look, summer. Firstly, I'm a man with kids who are still in school, so I didn't have the same opportunity to take my break, and I'll have to take my holidays when they have holidays in August. But it's been a good break from FPL in general. I think we were all pretty much drained out. I mean, we talked about it. It was the longest season we've had, including the World Cup. So it was nice to sort of switch off. And even now, I think the next 5 weeks, you now know the prices. So it's more like, you're thinking around it. Those Friday press conferences are not there. The Saturday highs and lows aren't there. So you can chill out still another 5 weeks. And I think, yeah, people will be ready to go. And on your question on prices, look, I think there is a good and bad to it. I think the good is that some of the very, very high EO players have been priced up, maybe Salah, Trent, and Haaland. But the disappointing part is that the second tier below that I feel been underpriced to an extent. So a lot of us will be able to afford again the top 6 players, and it slightly dilutes the whole research element of promoted teams, top 10, 11, 12 teams, and finding those gems. So we'll talk about that. But I think overall, decent job.
Yep. It's like they priced up the 4 or 5 guys who are the more household names. I would say the more guys who are the premiums and such. And pretty much for the rest of the guys, they just left it to the interns. Almost stuff like
Yeah.
that.
I thought 11F5, it's great FPL accounts, summarize this quite accurately. And this is the tweet. I just want to read it out. He said, fantasy games have always been about managing resources under constraints. That is approximately the entire game. Another year of loosening constraints, which means lowering prices, continues the shift from the game to an alternative engagement platform. So, as long as you're aware what you're signing up on for, and aligning your expectations, it's fine. I think and I was talking to Danny yesterday as well, and the one thing we can always expect is for football to surprise us. Like, we don't know what we don't know in terms of what football is going to throw up this season, and that always leaves hope in terms of us enjoying the game.
That's true.
Absolutely. And Zoff, you've been going to the gym still? How was yours? How was your break?
Break was good. I had a small surgery done on my nose to clear up my sinuses. So it took me almost a month to recover from that. Back in the gym about since I think the 1st of July or maybe sometime last week. So feeling good again, fully recovered, raring to go.
Nice.
Let's kick off with our sponsor plugs and we can discuss all the price reveals that have come so far. So, as you guys know, we are sponsored by Fantasy
Right.
Football Scout. Alad, you want to do the plug? Go ahead.
Yeah, and they've got a great 30% discount going at the moment. So, it's the best time to sign up with them given the rates that they're offering. And if you do want to sign up, because, there's best content on there, there's incredible stats, everything that we've been using in the last 3 years on this podcast has been from Fantasy Football Scout as well. So, you make sure you click on the link in the description below to sign up. And I always think preseason is absolutely the best time to sign up. Another thing you should also sign up for is our Discord, because I think it's the best time to get interacting with members of the community. If Twitter in its current state isn't exactly a thing, that's a sort of a safer space where conversations are a lot more elaborate. We've got a great little community going there, and you want to join our Discord, you just need to sign up on our Patreon, or you can become a member on YouTube, and the steps will direct you further.
And we have some upgrades coming. We're currently running on old hardware, old templates for this pod, but things are in progress. We're looking to add new cameras, possibly 4K streaming, some new templates, and you'll probably see that roll out over the course of preseason.
Also, there's been a few questions about where your friend Big Man is. Zoff, something that made me chuckle is, has he been signed up by the Saudi League? What are your thoughts there, Zoff?
I think he's too expensive for the Saudi League.
Yeah. I think if he's moving, it's going to be Real Madrid or Barcelona. I don't think he's going to the Saudi League.
Big man goes to big clubs.
Yeah. But in case you guys are wondering about where Big Man is, he's going to show up on the podcast time and again as well.
Cool. So let's kick off with the prices discussions. I've just dumped all the images here in the order that the official account released them. So we'll just breeze through the promoted teams. Up first, I think for Luton. And I think we are going to be doing the promoted pod soon with FPL Irons. He did mention that Luton would be a team that doesn't have many FPL assets and in fact be a team to target. But I think the guy who's caught most people eye is Bell, whose price at just 4.2 and started the majority of games in the championship. But just wanted to mention he is currently at the Gold Cup with his national team, so he might miss the first few game weeks, but I doubt it's anyone we're going to call upon anyway. So you just move on.
I think
Anything to add here?
Moving into Luton, moving into the smaller clubs, just generally, you've had a look at the prices. Any first impressions, first thoughts of?
No Salah.
Oh, Salah. So is that the first time you're doing it since he's signed for
First
Liverpool?
time since he signed for Liverpool. Yeah, because I think the term one is going to be thrown around a lot. I'm going to find it hard not to say
Shout out to
onion.
Adam who hates the term.
Yeah, it was a debate between one or one miam. I think one makes it more fun because LR is going to end up saying onion half of the time.
Yeah.
So probably stick with that. But yeah, because the prices,
But
right? It's all interesting. You have so many guys at 8.59. Like you can get a midfielder possibly like Son, Saka, Rashford, and Haaland, and even if you leave out Trent, and the difference between the defenders, like a Zinchenko is 5, who's finished second in the league. They had so many clean sheets at home, and then Trent is 8. That's such a huge gap.
Yeah, I mean, you can afford an incredible team. Let's face it. It's a way to look at it. It's sort of Super League FPL, where you really need to only focus on the top 10, 12 teams in terms of the research that we had to do for FPL. I mean, I'm questioning if we need to do a promoted team pod sitting today, if we're able to afford a really, really good team. So, that's where my thoughts are. But again, I'm hoping football surprises us. As I see it, it's about, the game is going to be about picking the best option amongst really good options. So, Flapjack tweeted yesterday, it's going to be really difficult to have a bad team. And that's how I see it.
Press?
Agreed. I think structure-wise, we'll come to this slide whenever we get to it, which is basically we'll talk about how, from a big picture perspective, people will think about the team, right? Like you said, I think they'll struggle to have Salah, Trent, and Haaland. So they will then need to think about who do you sacrifice, and I think not many will go the Haaland route. So then you'll have to think about Trent or Salah. So I think those are things that people will think about. But I completely agree with you. It's a game of top 6, top 8 teams, and I think also more generally talking football. Last year, the 3 promoted teams stayed on. So we have now 6 teams that are fairly new to the league, which when you hear, oh, this team is playing Bournemouth or Nottingham Forest or Luton or Burnley, they all feel like such easy games. And maybe again, like you said, football might surprise us, and this may change. The perception might change, but on paper, right now, it feels like this is the best top 12 we've had in the Premier League. And so there's going to be a lot of easy games, and we in fantasy then we'll be able to pick the best players to attack those fixtures. So we'll see how it goes. If everybody moves together, or the lack of double game weeks and blanks sort of make people go different, which I'm sure later as it will. So yeah, that's what I think macro first view of the prices.
Yeah, we'll do a pod more on macro. I think you had sent us a note where I think game week 18 is expected to be the first blank due to the Club World Cup.
Correct. There's actually there's some disruption this year, both because of the Club World Cup, because of AFCON. If we'll get time, we'll do either a segment or a pod on it and talk about all the issues. And of course, then the FA Cups and other things. So it's a little early for that stuff, but at least if you know that, then you can even now think, do I want to go for a long-term wildcard or a short-term wildcard?
Pras, is it really early though? You probably know your game week 16, 17 team
I know
now,
my chip strategy, it's done, but I don't want to scare people off.
Nice. You're not into the whole slow strip thing like how FPL has done their launches this year.
We go.
Yeah. We'll definitely do a segment on that. But let's just get through Sheffield United as well. I don't know. Are they look quite similar to the team that went down, right? Because I'm seeing Norwood, Bird, McBurney. These are guys who were there last time, but they've all been more attacking. From what I've heard, Norwood gets a bit more forward now. Stuff like that.
This guy, Ahmed Dozic, again, I've butchered his pronunciation, but apparently he's got a great goal scoring record from centre back last season. So again, we'll do the pod or we'll talk about these defenders in more detail, but that was the only gem that I could see here. But again, he's 4.5. When you price Botman at 4.5, you say, I'm not going for a Sheffield United defender anymore. So back to the point that they'll be interesting, but not where we go.
They might give me my team name for this season. I might change my team name this year after almost 13, 14 years.
Which is?
Spill the beans.
And I will always love you.
Nice. You have to start the pod at some point this season singing that song when you are on a massive green. Okay. I think that's the deal we have.
If I have a sub 10K game week rank that week, done deal.
Done deal. Shake on it. Done. Great.
Done.
Yeah.
This is a big one, I guess. Liverpool, your boy Nunes first up. LR, I think you landed and this was the first price that got your Spiders and Stingling.
Yeah, I mean, I landed and I was looking at Twitter and I landed in Baker's pod immediately went live that season, that time, and they just happened to talk about Darwin and I'm like, what, are you kidding me? He's 7.5 million. Like, second season is the best time he's had a settlement period in the first season with Liverpool. Admittedly, there is competition for those three spots. We've got Darwin, we've got Gakpo, we've got Salah, we've got Jota, we've got, who else is there? Luis Diaz. So there's tons of players. There's McAllister. And there's lots of players, but
you're skipping one, LR. The pronunciation, I'm waiting for that.
There's a reason I didn't go there right now, because I need to practice that pronunciation. I'll come there once the background work on pronunciations are done there. But yeah, I'm not going to go there right now. But the thing is that this is Klopp's Liverpool 2.0 in our opinion. And, football teams evolve and progress into something new and different every year. We saw some signs of a different team and formation that Liverpool playing towards the second half of last season with Trent dropping into midfield. I don't know if that's going to be the case this season, but there are 3 or 4 teams that you really need to keep an eye out for in preseason in terms of patterns of play. If there's an indication that there's a first team starter, and Liverpool's right up there.
Absolutely. Let's go for position by position, starting, of course, with defense. I think this is one of the biggest gaps we've seen between Robertson and Trent since Trent became a mainstay on the team. What are your thoughts there, Pras?
I think people are comparing Robertson to Trent. That comparison is gone, especially in this new way that they play. Robertson is fine. He's an attacking defender, but he's not the old Robertson who was overlapping as much as Trent. So I think it's fair to have the gap, but I still think if Robertson is competing with, Trippier, even I would say James, Shaw, Chilwell, that's his sort of competition. And he's a million more than, the others apart from Trippier. Trent, I think, is fair, because looking at his numbers, he's putting up numbers equivalent to a Bowen or an Isak in the last 10 game weeks. So I don't think people should think of him as a defender especially in this new position. The only concern, and we don't know yet, obviously this is all before preseason, is Szoboszlai. He takes a lot of set pieces as well. So basically, we'll see how that impacts Trent. And Szoboszlai also plays on the right side of midfield. So that diamond between him, Salah, and Trent, we'll see how that works out. Whether that means that Trent is actually staying even further back, or is he making fewer key passes because McAllister is in? All this stuff we don't know. But
that's a good point, because Hendo covered him a lot last season when Trent bombed forward. So that's a great point. I didn't think of that.
Yeah, and it's about how that triangle on the right plays and what the sense of interplay is. It's essentially based on that. And, it could even mean, since Szoboszlai, and I was just waiting for Pras to clock that so that I don't screw it up. Trent are playing from the right, and if a lot of creative funneling is happening from the right hand side, and Robbo's again tasked with the role of being inside the box, because he has the engine, he does, where he's at the back post waiting for the box. Robbo could again be a really good asset. It's just we don't know that piece of information, which is why you need to scout Liverpool. I'm not writing off Trent, I'm not writing off Robbo. I just don't think we know enough about Liverpool just yet.
And the fixtures are mixed, right? I don't remember them. I know there's Chelsea first, but I think it's a mixed bag of fixtures in terms of clean sheet potential.
Yeah, I mean, look at the first four. There are not many clean sheets out there, because you've got Chelsea and Newcastle away, and you've got Bournemouth and Villa at home. Now, Chelsea away, Newcastle away, and Villa at home don't scream like clean sheet fixtures on paper as well. So if somebody wants to stack their midfield up and go for a third or a fourth player who's in the 8.59 million midfield bracket, and maybe compromise, because we have replaceable assets like Shaw, the Chelsea defenders, etc. Porro's 5.0 million, then I see value in that strategy, should you choose to go there, given the fixtures.
Because I normally go with the whole price points thing. You like to get the most expensive player in each position so you can be flexible early on. But I don't see myself going with Trent this time. A move it's always two moves away, right? You downgrade your midfielder, upgrade your defender. It's not that hard. But my initial thoughts are I won't be having Trent at 8 million until I see some more solidity from Liverpool. Because Liverpool, even though they kept those clean sheets at the tail end of last season, the XG data was quite poor. I still need some time to be convinced on their defense again.
There is a thinking, though, that if you let go of Trent, I think you can afford a Tumium. And if you have belief in a Mo Salah to, hit levels of the second half of last season, or maybe previous seasons where he was incredibly consistent throughout, there's a decision to be made there. Because you can afford a pretty good team with Salah, Haaland, without Trent.
Van Dijk at 5.5, if he is, that would make that a decision, I think. But at 6 now.
Yeah. I think when we're talking about Liverpool, we need to completely forget about what they were last season, because their midfield is changed 180 degrees. It's not the same team anymore. So I don't even expect them to be as defensively open and concede as many chances as they did last year. I think Klopp is going to be aware of that. Their midfield last season with Thiago and Fabinho just had no legs. So there's a lot more energy there. They do need to sign a DM though. And if Thuram does come in, then we talk about what to.
Moving on from defense in midfield, I don't think McAllister is going to be an FPL option, but I'm surprised how many people think that Salah is going to take penalties and not him. In my head, I think it has to be McAllister. He's just such a superior penalty taker. Every time you see him, it's always going in the top corner. There's a lot of... What do you think, Pras?
We'll find out. We'll see. But I think at the moment, the base assumption can be that Salah is just so selfish that he'll keep it. But you're right. He could miss a couple and then it transfers. But then, Milner was a better penalty taker, at least on paper, than him as well. But he never switched it off, or he never gave it to him either. But look, I see your point, and it's definitely a possibility that this happens. And the moment it happens, basically Salah goes from limited appeal to zero appeal.
Even though I think they got only like 3 penalties or 4 penalties in total last season, I think they all came in the last 10 game weeks. But mentally, right, when we're looking at a premium as a captaincy option, you want the pens in there.
Correct. I mean, the other thing...
go on, Pras.
I was just saying, more in terms of midfield, I was actually reading one of these Tifo football things with Liverpool. The biggest concern, he's trying to do the whole City system, or his own version of the City system. The problem is that City play with these very controlling wingers, right? Bernardo Silva, Grealish, who don't lose the ball. And so even if Stones is out of position, he's in the middle, you don't lose the ball ever. So you're never actually exposed at the back. The problem with doing it with Liverpool is Salah will lose the ball a lot. That's just how he is. He dribbles a lot. He tries to go in. Diaz will do the same on the other side. So there is a theory that basically Liverpool will come back to the traditional 4-3-3 because now they actually have a midfield. And this was basically only to cover the weak midfield that they had at the end of last season. So we'll see in preseason how they end up, and that sort of then changes the dynamic between maybe Robertson is a good price and Trent is too expensive, and so on and so forth. And then again in midfield, which of the two is playing 10, McAllister or Szoboszlai?
Gakpo 7.5 million forward. Any of you interested in that player? Hakpo. What are we going with for the season? I think we need to.
He's been coined as Hakpo. We cannot do injustice to that.
All right. What do you think? Looking at him as an option?
I don't think so at 7 because ultimately I never looked at Gakpo, even though his numbers were great, right? In the Dutch league, in Liverpool, that role has always been the facilitator role. It's the wide forwards who get the joy. So not initially.
Yeah, it's all relative, right? This pricing. You can get penalty takers who are talisman from their teams in other teams for a similar price. Whether that's Wilson will be maybe 7.5, 8. You can get Watkins, you can get Jesus for a very similar price. So even Mitrovic, Nkunku, not on penalties, but still. So I mean, these are guys that are similar, and you'd expect a little bit more output than Hakpo, who's sort of feeding Salah and Diaz, and now even the 8s and 10s that they've signed.
Yep. Just before we move on to the next team, I want to mention we got like 500 people who've decided to not press refresh on the FPL website and join us instead. So thank you so much. If you could just take a second to change the tab and hit on like and subscribe, we'd really appreciate it because it obviously helps us with the algorithm, and we're excited to be here. Also, just if the chat is active and the game goes live, I'm sure they'll tell us, but just please tell us because we're going to take a break for 2 minutes on air, set up our teams, and then look at things.
I'm going to sign up on air. I've set up the browser window, so that should be fun.
Yeah,
how many times have you guys refreshed while we started?
0 so far.
0.
I'm monitoring the chat, and thankfully, because we had a discussion
I'm monitoring
before
the clock because usually it's on the round numbers, right? It's very rarely like either side. So another 4 or 5 minutes, I'll be going pat.
Yeah, actually, 7:30 our time is the time to look at it.
Should we move on from Liverpool?
Yeah, sure.
This is now I've got Aston Villa up here. Not Aston Villa, Burnley, similar jerseys. My bad. So only one that I know here that's interesting possibly is Connor Roberts. He's a very attacking fullback, and I know that company likes to attack. I think plus you were mentioning that they've signed a goalkeeper from Man City.
Well, they're in talks to sign Trafford, the Man City goalkeeper, and the theory is that if he's already priced as a Man City third keeper, then maybe he's 4.0 or something, and that could be our 4.0 keeper for the year. But we'll see.
Yep. I don't know because I know what this Irons mentioned that they had a lot of players on loan. So really don't know what to expect from them this year as much.
Yeah, but it's interesting and a team to watch because they're sort of like Manchester City of the Championship, where they dictated a lot, controlled a lot of the play, had inverted fullbacks. Companies also used to rotating a fair amount as well. Now, he will obviously need to adapt once he's made the jump to the Premiership. And I almost wonder if Burnley are thinking that they got in there a season or two too early, because it's a progress when company was signed. To manage to do what he did in one season in such a short span of time is a pretty big deal. So how they'll adapt, will they change their play if company is an extreme what's the word, purist, then Burnley are going to get hammered by a few teams quite significantly as well, given the gap in quality. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that'd be interesting because this is pretty much company's first time, because you've been at Anderlecht, Burnley first time in the top flight, how much he adapts. Because again, we need to change our perception when we see Burnley. We are used to seeing a very stoic defense similar to like Stoke, etc., rigid, long balls. It's not.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch them. I mean, I'm thinking in a very crude way that, when we saw Leeds come into the Premier League 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 3 years maybe, just under Bielsa, first season, So, have good games where they do well. Actually, they will dominate games against the bottom 10 teams and also get hammered in a couple of them. Very crudely, that's what I expect of Burnley.
Yep. Yep.
I've got Fulham up here now. I think the first surprise was Mitrovic, 7.5, possibly 0.5 too much. What do you think?
I mean, given Gabriel Jesus is 8.0 and Watkins is 8.0, like Mitrovic would need to be really, really consistent. But he's a decent differential for people who believe in, because the memory that we have of Fulham is them dwindling off, being on the beach in the last 10 game weeks of the season.
And
But if you're
Mitrovic
thinking about the
missing
first half,
penalties. How many did he miss? 4 penalties?
or penalties, missed the season, it's a blank slate now, right? Things are changing, and Fulham are arguably pushing to be a top half team this season as well. So if they're playing as good front foot football, if the team's on the same trajectory, he is the talisman. Like, he is probably, in terms of identifying teams with proper talisman, I think Mitrovic is top 3, top 4 in terms of talismanic nature in a team. So, it could work. It just depends on how well Fulham do.
I think Pereira might take penalties though. I know he took a few, he took them better than Mitrovic. There's some chance there. 5.5 is an interesting price. I think they got that one right. 6, he would have been a bit too much, I think.
Yeah, yep. And also, I mean, you're not going to really go with Fulham towards the start of the season because they've got tough fixtures. They've got Arsenal and City away in game week 3 and 4. So just doesn't seem like a place to start.
Leno, I think, might attract some interest. I liked what he did last season in terms of saves and stuff. They have a good fixture and a good rotation, something we can look at later.
Yeah, 4.5 is good price. He had good saves as well. 5 points.
Forest, anything to talk about?
I mean, I think we can't ignore what Avoyoni or whatever his name is.
Taiwo. We call him Taiwo.
Avoni
Yes.
did towards the 7:30 and the game.
I've been refreshing on my phone. Nothing is same old story.
Same old story. Nothing else. It's going to happen at 8 when we were going to just about to wrap up the pod, and then we're going to extend the pod by an hour. That's essentially what's going to happen. But yeah, that's interesting, especially if they manage to wrap up the Iheanacho signing, because I rate that player so highly, and he's perfect in a 2-striker setup. Whether he's going to play with Gibbs White and Taiwo, what's going to happen, he's incredible, and he's incredible for the players around him as well. So Forest are a team that interests me, that I'm looking at. But again, the fixtures are not easy at the start of the season. So again, a wait and watch. But I'm interested in Forest attack.
Johnson as a mid also is an interesting reclassification. But the problem is, I think the midfield slots are going to be very precious, even more so than we saw at the tail end of last season.
That said, Gibbs White is interesting. I thought he did well towards the end of last season. He's almost like a forward. He's proper OOP, out of position, when we're talking about a player who's playing properly as a striker. He's always in and amongst the goals. So that's a player I'm looking at, maybe toward the 4th or 5th midfielder slot.
Let's move on to Chelsea, your favorite team, LR. No, your favorite team too, plus. So we have 3 Chelsea fans.
We're all top half we support Man United, bottom half we support Chelsea.
I like that one. That's a good one. So the fullbacks at 5.5, I think obviously are the first destination everyone's going to look at. And I know they're likely not going to be wing backs, but Pochettino, I remember when Walker and Rose had their breakout seasons under him from Tottenham. So I think the potential is definitely there. I'm still not convinced that he's going to get it on early doors. I might go without the defenders initially for the first 2 weeks, because the first 2 fixtures aren't the easiest, right? I think it's Liverpool and then West Ham away. Then we have a good run with the Luton, Bournemouth, Sheffield.
Luton, Forest, Bournemouth, Sheffield.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. After game week 2, the first 2 are... I remember last season, my first transfer was for the 4.5 budget mid, Harrison Reed, and the 4th transfer was my 4.0 goalkeeper to a 3.9. So I'm okay with this time booking in a transfer for game week 3, I think.
I think on the defenders, it's all relative, right? If you have Shaw at 5.5, if you have Porro at 5, If you have, maybe a Shar from Newcastle at 5, so there's now a lot more competition at that space for reasonably attacking defenders. So for them to move and get into our teams, they need to show them to be much more attacking than the other ones. And I think we need to see that. We can't just say that because it's not a wing back system. But I hear you on the Poch thing. But I'm a little bit more guarded, having been burnt so much last season on James and Chilwell.
Yep.
I mean, so many people are talking purely about Reece James. I mean, Chilwell's price has got me all excited because I remember a couple of seasons ago we were doing a preseason pod, and when he was fit, he's posting numbers at match trend when it comes to points per minute and expected data generated per minute. He's one of those defenders who's got the sense of where a goal is. He takes set pieces. He's really, really good. And I think he's done with the problems he had for the last year and a half also, because there were fitness issues. There were some murmurs about mental issues as well. And he looks good to go right now. I think I will probably have at least one Chelsea defender to start the season with. And Raheem Sterling really, really interests me as well. I mean, a lot of people are talking about he's a done thing. And then I think it was Danny again who tweeted, Raheem Sterling is 28. Supposed to hit his prime age. And Poch is not somebody who's going to rotate, right? Poch sticks
With
with
one game a week,
this.
not necessary.
He sticks with his team. He's going to give them the chances. I think Raheem is going to be in there, whether he's going to play more on the wing or as an inside forward. It's just Chelsea really, really interesting. And Tuku as a 7.5 million forward, it also, we have to wait and watch because they've done the stripping off. It's about what clothes they buy now in terms of expecting and what we can expect from Chelsea now. So, yeah, a team that really interests me. It's basically the Arsenal of last season in terms of, a team that didn't really do well, underpriced massively, has a lot of potential this season. Biggest factor is no Europe for them. We saw how much that played into Arsenal's hands as well. So, yeah, a team I'm sure is going to be very prominent amongst all FPL Icalians.
I have no clue who's going to be on penalties as of now. Because Jorginho is gone. Mount used to be the second taker. He's gone. Havertz used to also take some. He's gone. That's totally up for grabs.
Tell me, how do you feel about Nkunku?
I like
what
him.
do you know?
I like him because I think he did very good in the UCL. I remember UCL Fantasy. He was quite popular on a Discord as a pick. He delivered quite well over there. Little bit of time I played Bundesliga Fantasy. He was a very good pick. But then again, Timo Werner tax comes into play always, right? How much of it do you really take?
Yeah.
I saw that Wenger proposed an interesting new rule. He said that if any part of the body of the attacker is in line with the defender, that won't be ruled offside. Can you imagine how many goals Timo Werner would have scored?
Yeah, I mean that season I finished 600, 700k. I'd probably have finished 6-7k if that was the case.
It's mad.
Yeah.
I mean, but where do you think Nkunku will play? He'll be a number 10, right? He'll have to play with a striker. He's not the striker.
Generally
We
not
don't know
a
that
striker.
yet.
We don't know that yet, but it all depends on the kind of system that Poch plays. Traditionally, he's not been the number 9. He's either been playing off it or maybe the Salah role, inside forward sort of thing. But we've got this guy Jackson. I don't know much about him. He seems like a bit of a raw talent. But as of now, I don't think Lukaku will be staying. I certainly hope he doesn't. So Broya is back. So our options are limited up top.
I'm sure you're going to be spending in the transfer window now that majority of your big sales are done. It's a team to watch in terms of how they progress. But just thoughts in terms of people are talking about whether the wing backs are going to push up or not. I think if you guys wrap up Casido, that's a double pivot of Casido and Enzo, which is a fairly defensively solid double pivot. Which means if he's going to implement that as a starting, I think the wing backs are going to get licensed to attack because there's enough defensive solidity.
And there are there are probably two best players, or not top 3 best players. Like they're right up there. So you have to use your best players in the best positions.
Exactly. So yeah.
I mean, I was also, again, reading about just how teams are changing formations. Basically, every team is attacking with 5 players, no matter what formation, whether it's a wing back or whether it's a 4-4-2 or whatever. We need to see who those 5 are for Chelsea. And are James and Chilwell or James or Chilwell involved in that? Because you could also rotate, right? That'll be key. They used to be both in the 5. Maybe not anymore, and it'll be one goes up and the other stays back or something like that. So TBT.
Yeah, it depends on who's creating because as far as I remember, Mount used to play both sides as well. And when he used to play on the right hand side, James and Mount used to both be the creative funnel on that right hand side. Now, who's going to be on the right hand side, Zoff, as things stand?
Mudrik probably.
Yeah, so he's not really creative. So if James is
Or
going
maybe he
to
goes on the
handle
left. I don't know.
if James handles the creative responsibility, I reckon it might be like Trent and Robbo of maybe 2 or 3 years ago, where Chilwell's responsibility is to be the attacking funnel, and James's responsibility is to be the creative funnel. So that there will be a
Yeah.
decision there.
Set pieces are also up for grabs.
Yeah. James takes quite a few of them on that
Yep.
side, right?
James
Yeah.
and Chilwell also. Chilwell, in fact, started taking more than James. At one point, he was taking everything except like your pens.
Yeah, correct. Just a few prices that have been coming on while we've been chatting. Madison 7.5, Martinelli is 8.0, and my boy Phil Foden is 7.5.
7.5 is
Edison
interesting, especially Marder's leaves. Yeah, Edison, come on. We got to go there.
Edison has been killed
5.5.
as an FPN asset. I mean, this is really sad news.
What do you think about Edison at 5.5, Pras?
I mean, look, we joke around about it, but we never go with Edison at the beginning, right? I mean, that the 1 million is 1% of your budget. It's too much. And you only look at an Edison when it's last 4 game weeks, 6 game weeks, and they have 2 doubles, and you want basically access to clean sheets because the guy doesn't get save points and bonus. So this is the last we'll talk about Edison because he's not going to make our teams. 5.5 is too much. I'm hoping for 5 at least to tempt people. But
You can't do that for the title winning team, right?
Yeah. I mean, they can do whatever they want. I mean, Arsenal's prices, honestly speaking, are ridiculous. Like I think all of them should be at least 0.5 more, at least. So they're clearly the second best team in the league. Like if you remember, the marquee players to the challengers to City, Liverpool, they were all upwards of 10 million. I mean, Mane was 11.5 million when Salah was 12.5, 13 million. You got to increase the prices of those Arsenal players, but there was nothing that happened there. So yeah.
Let's move on to Newcastle. Are we expecting similar things from Newcastle this season?
If I have to call and make a prediction, I think they don't make the top 4. I
Top
think
6?
we see a slight downward trajectory from Newcastle this season. I don't really know what their style of play is, etc. They could evolve as a team, but I just haven't seen them make the signings other clubs have, etc. I don't think they have the quality of players that other players have. I think your club, Spurs, Liverpool, will do a fair amount of catching up. So I'm not sure. And plus, they don't have a great start of the season as well. So, Botman is a 4.5 million enabler to start the season with as my 4th or 5th defender. Outside of that, I'm not looking at them.
Yeah, someone I think mentioned a rotation between Mings and Botman. I think it was all about FPL guys. I think I saw it on their feed, which works quite good. But I don't even know if Mings is going to be starting for Villa because now they have Torres and they have Diego Carlos who's fit again. So, but I think I like Botman in a rotation because Newcastle are a different beast at home, and I think they will continue to be stronger at home. But I think once the Champions League weeks come around and you have 2 consecutive away trips and things like that, because they have such a high energy, high pressing style, I think that's when they'll start to tail off a little bit.
Yeah. If they had a good start of the season, yeah, I might be interested. But it isn't the case at the moment. The fixtures dictate the players.
We can't not talk about Trippier, the highest scoring defender of last season. Plus, your thoughts?
I think 6.5 is high, but I wouldn't say we won't ever go there because of how productive he was last year. And it'll come when, I can completely see this scenario happening where a lot of people go for Trent in the beginning and then he loses 2 clean sheets, 2 blanks, and everybody basically sells him in mass because 8 million is a lot of money. And then you'll have a lot of options. Newcastle have better fixtures after game week 4. So you could see people going there, but off the cuff, again, same discussion as Robertson. He has to continue to produce that level, and James, Chilwell, Shaw, and the others that we talked about have to not do so well, and then people will look at Trippier again. So I think at 6.5, he's been basically fully priced. and he needs to match last season to justify that price. And you don't want to sort of bet the house that he will, because he had a fantastic season. A lot of it was also down to getting that sub before losing the clean sheet, or getting a lot of set piece assists. So we'll see how Tonali affects that, or any other signings that they make. So jury's out. I think not many will have Trippier game week 1.
I think the one thing that Trips has that most other defenders don't have is how much of an actual bonus points monster he is. He doesn't need much to get into the bonus points, and that's overlooked. Which is why he gets those 15, 20 incremental points over his compatriots in the slightly cheaper price range as well.
Yep.
So I think that's a factor.
The clean sheet is around 6 to 7 points for him, pretty much.
Yeah.
This is Crystal Palace. Roy staying on for another year. I think Johnston is the one that I was actually looking for early doors, because good for bonus defense first team. I haven't had a look at the fixtures, mixed fixtures early on.
I'll read out the first 5 for you. They've got Sheffield United away, Arsenal at home, Brentford away, Wolves at home, and Aston Villa away. Yeah, mixed fixtures. Wait and watch. What do you think about Boy given another year? I don't feel fully sure about it. Somebody in the Discord actually made a great analogy. It seems like how Solskjaer became United's manager, especially when the situation was so bad with the previous manager, and the manager who came in just gave them a free rein. So the players actually just unshackled and played their best version of football. Roy didn't have to do much. And then it started all unraveling for Man United. Sort of sings of a similar tune. I'm not fully confident about what Palace might be doing this season, so I'm happy to wait and watch.
Spot on. Same thoughts.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, Eze at 6.5 will be interesting, but that bracket is pretty full. Has Eze's price been released?
Yes, I think Eze's I think 7 or 6.5.
6.5.
So 6.5. Same as Mitoma. I remember seeing him the same as Mitoma and being like, Mitoma is a better option.
Exactly. That's the thing.
Manchester United. Mason Mount might be the first player we see transfer clubs once the game launches. Or I don't know if they launched with him in Manchester United already. They just made the announcement a few hours ago. Felt weird.
Yeah.
Number 7.
Number 7.
Give him the number 7.
I found that quite interesting, because that's a big number, right? A lot of history attached to that. What do you guys think? I know what I think as a Chelsea fan, but on the outside, what do you guys think about Mason Mount?
Go on, Ella.
I mean, I was skeptical at first about the signing, but it's also the kind of signing much more functional teams make, which aren't, blockbuster on paper, etc. But they are made to serve a purpose. I'm also a very optimistic person in life when it comes to viewing United, whether it comes to viewing FPL, etc. as well. And I always am constantly telling myself, don't get too excited, be pessimistic. But the more I read about it, the more I think about the tactical flexibility that a player like Mount is going to afford Ten Hag, because it's going to suit a manager like Ten Hag, who likes to have different plans for different kind of games, where if he wants to shift Bruno wide and play Mount 10, he has an option there. If he wants to not play Bruno Fernandes for 60 games a season, despite his superpower abilities, now we actually have a player who's capable of playing in the 10, and we can give Bruno a rest. He can play Mount wide as well. He covers a lot of positions. He's great off the ball. It's not blockbuster. It's functional, which is why I don't mind it. But I want to make my judgments after the first 10 weeks of the season. But from what I've read, etc., Ten Hag really, really wanted it. And Mount was courted by a few of the big clubs. So keeping in mind that managers always seem to love him, I'm happy about the signing.
Plus?
Yeah. It's a positive step, but it doesn't address the biggest weakness, which is right up top and right at the back, as in goal. So as a team, I think the jury's out. It's a good addition to the midfield. It'll change the dynamics. I think a lot of managers are moving towards 2-8s because they want to press as high up the field as possible. So, I mean, Liverpool are doing this. Man City have been doing this. So it's a different strategy. So trust Ten Hag to sort of deliver. And I think it should be another solid season. But the problem is this transfer window isn't a new owner transfer window. This is the Glazer transfer window. So, we saw in January, the only signings were Weghorst and Sabitzer for free. Again, this year, if you don't sign a great striker, Maybe Onana improves us, which he will, but maybe that's the only thing, and we don't end up with a great striker. So it should be another season of, I would say, as a not optimistic but a realistic Man United fan, pushing for top four, doing well in Champions League, having a good cup run, nothing more than that. And therefore, you need to keep making progress, basically.
Do you expect it to be? I think last year Manchester United, is it fair to say they were a defense first team?
Yeah, and also, we created a fair amount of attack. We just didn't finish it. And in terms of how we evolve, it's going to be, I think, in terms of transformational signings, Onana is going to be right up there for us, in my opinion, if we manage to get him. Because
he can play with his feet, right? That makes a big difference.
He can play with his feet, and that just makes it's got sort of an effect throughout the team because your keeper can pass and play the passes. You're able to play a much higher line. Your first phase of play and build up is much more smoother. You can afford to take much more risks. You can split the center backs. You can push the wing backs up forward. It's a much more compressed first third of the field for United, which we can't do because we need to have two more technically secure players at the back if we have a keeper like De Gea. So in terms of general how we play, I think teams will or fans will take a while to come around because he's risky. He's watching him play makes your heart drop because you're not used to seeing something like this. And there will be a few times when we're conceding goals by taking a high risk. But and he's not a great shot stopper. But if it leads to the change in play that Ten Hag wants us to make, I think it's going to be a transformational signing for us. Like that's the one I really want us to make.
Assuming that, let's say, he gets in goal, what do you think of Luke Shaw's price at 5.5?
I think Luke Shaw's very well priced, irrespective.
I expected more. I expected 6, to be honest. If you'd asked me, I'd have given him at 6. He's taking majority of set pieces. I think Bruno barely takes any. He shares them more or less with Eriksen now. Gets forward a lot from open play. Pretty nailed on because I think the right back slot has more competition now. And the left Malacia probably gets very few games. I think this probably 0.5 too less.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be very, very surprised if he's not in my Gameweek 1 team. Probably one of the first few names that I'm going to click in when the game launches in about 9 minutes, hopefully.
I mean, look, again, it's relative. I think Shaw is still the best out of the options, but I'm also actually waiting for Martinez's price because
Game
I think
is updating and will be available soon. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh man!
Oh my god! Oh my god! This is happening right now. Okay, so are we pressing refresh or are we talking?
I've got on my phone. I've got my fingers doing the thing, so I'll let you guys know.
How do we focus now? How is this?
Just to calm everyone's nerves, including the viewers, the team ID is important for two things. Number one, just to remember, and as somebody growing up in the 90s, I remember 9-digit phone codes, so it doesn't matter. And the second thing is, if there's a cup tie, then that's it. So it doesn't impact your OR at all. If you're on the same number of points with the same number of transfers, you'll have the same OR. It's not that it improves it at all. So it's not that big of a deal if we lose, if it's 4-digit. Having said that, let's press F5.
Also, what happens to let's have a little bit of a wager. What does the person who gets the worst ID amongst the three of us do?
It doesn't count. I'm hosting. I have things to do.
I mean, they should get an award because they're focused on the pod and not refreshing.
Yeah. I want to see actually if we lost viewers. No, we've increased viewers. My God. People want to see this live thing happening. So, Zoff, what are your thoughts on Luke Shaw? Is he going to be in your team game week 1? Yes. And that played into our hands when we said the game might launch in about 9 minutes. I think it's going to launch in 7 minutes.
Now the updating thing has come. Not could literally drop any second. I was waiting for the updating thing. Now they've basically taken the old stuff out. Anyway, let's try to focus. Let's talk on midfield and Bruno Fernandes. Mason Mount's impact on him potentially could mean. I think Ten Hag liked Bruno in a deeper role last season, and I thought, well, FPL wise, he wasn't the best, but I think he made your team better in that role.
Zoff is live.
It's live.
No,
it's not. See, I thought the chat was going to do that to us.
I had to pull one of those right now. It's an exciting time. Suddenly the chat has gone quiet also. Like people are like people were typing in the middle. They're not under pressing anymore.
We've gone from the main screen to now the background noise, basically while people F5.
Yeah.
To answer Zoff's question, to continue the podcast, I think what The impact is unknown. We will see in preseason, but I think, like I said, they will both be a little bit more forward. So it won't be like Bruno playing deep and then having a Sabitzer in the 8 or 10. I think it will be more that both of them will be pressing high up top, and Bruno is involved in chance creation anyway. So I wouldn't be worried about Bruno. Problem for Bruno is he's now the same price as Saka, same price as Odegaard, and a 0.5 or a million more expensive than a Foden. Then you can argue, do you want to go there or not initially as you're evaluating this new position?
Yeah. And I think you just take the safer bet and go with Rashford at 9 if you're going United.
Much more direct, right?
Yeah.
Is Weghorst even in your books anymore, or was he just like a 1 year thing? He's gone, right?
It's a loan,
Yeah,
6-month loan.
Yeah, so it's Martial and Rashford right now are your two strikers.
You know who Weghorst plays for right now, right? On the books, Burnley.
Double game week.
Oh, really? Is he still on Burnley's books? I did not know that.
Yeah, so he was on loan at Fenerbahce, through which we got him.
Okay, so you basically loaned out a player who was already on loan. I did not know that.
Yeah, something of that sort.
I thought only Chelsea do that.
Yeah.
We have Vitesse. Now we have Saudi, but I shall not say no more.
Rashford's price, what do you think? I mean, he's more expensive than Saka. I didn't like, I would have
put him at 10.
didn't like it.
I thought he's underpriced. 10 would have been where I would have gone.
I think it depends on the. I think it depends on the striker we get. If we get somebody like Holland, who is going to be more talismanic, then Rashford's value dwindles. If we get something like a Gonzalo Ramos, who's good at holding up the ball and also bringing up others into play, then Rashford's value goes up. So it also depends a fair amount on the striker we get. I also think, which is why, you've been talking about the amount of money United have, and they are a fair bit cash strapped. There's not much value in the market for strikers at the moment, which is why Ten Hag's gone to make and close the keeper signing. Because he has that Rashford option in the background, in case things go really, really sour.
You'll be cutting things closer with Champions League around this season. You don't want to go into the season with basically Rashford plus half a striker, which is what Martial is.
Yeah, and there've been talks about, slightly older strikers that we've lined up in the background. So, keeping in mind, I don't think we don't get strikers. There is a plan 4, plan 5, plan 6 in place, backup plans if these names don't work out towards the end of the season. I'm pretty sure about that.
Move on. Anything else, Manchester United?
One thing is, Anthony 7 million is actually interesting. I mean, last season he was starting to show that he's a little bit greedy, and they were trying to work out the chemistry between him and Bruno because they were not passing as well to each other. But I think he'll get more, embedded into the system, better embedded into the Premier League, and he's an aggressive kind of player who shoots a lot. So 7 million, he could make good value out of it.
Totally fine.
Yes.
Next one, Everton. He's not on here, but I thought Calvert-Lewin at 6.0 is probably the only one that would interest us. Maybe Pickford at 4.5 and they have a better run. Not much else.
Yeah, Pickford could, right? I mean, if Dyche reverts to type and goes back to knowing what he knows best, then Pickford could be the 4.5 choice. It's just about we want to see what kind of football Everton are going to play. But that's the keeper I definitely have my eye on. What are Everton's fixtures like at the start of the season? Pretty decent. Fulham at home, Villa away, Wolves at home, Sheffield United away. There are some clean sheet fixtures in there, so they could interest us. Up front for your third forward slot or at the back?
Yep.
I think Tarkowski rotates well, like you mentioned, similar to the other team you mentioned. I think with Botman, Tarkowski also rotates well with Botman, so that could be an option. But I think I agree, LR. I think Pickford could be the go-to keeper actually, because in 4.5 bracket, I'm thinking Fabianski, him, Leno. I don't think we'll get a Ramsdale at 4.5 again. We won't get a Man United keeper at 4.5. So basically, we're talking anything below. Spurs, Chelsea, that kind of ilk. And I think, Pickford will be as good as anyone.
Yep, I don't think Rhea is going to be at 4.5. I don't think he's staying at Brentford, but the Brentford keeper isn't going to be 4.5 this season for sure.
Yeah.
They have a keeper already that they bought.
Strashovka, something like that, right? Strashovka.
And what's his price?
He's not, we don't know yet.
We don't know yet, but
we don't know yet.
He didn't play a minute last season.
No, they signed somebody.
They signed by somebody. He's quite young.
Flecken.
Yeah, Flecken. Somebody. You're right. They did sign.
Some more news, by the way, very interesting news. While we were talking, is Enciso is a midfielder and Jota is a midfielder.
Oh, I expected Jota to go as a forward. That's quite surprising.
If Jota is a midfielder, it's a pretty big deal. And if he turns out, it looks like we're going to go
It's a
3-5-2.
left wing
isn't
role,
it?
right? It's a left wing. Again, you're competing with Diaz, who's fit, possibly Nunes. I hope the pricing reflects that.
Yeah.
Liverpool
It
is
will.
one injury away from becoming very interesting. The problem is right now we don't know which of these guys will play, apart from Salah up top.
Yeah.
That's absolutely right. Brighton, I thought Estupinan at 5 million. That's the one that really interested. They have very good fixtures to start with. I think the first 6, they have some 4 good home games and the 2 away games. One is away to Wolves and then one is away to United. So 6 good fixtures.
And they were the second best attacking team in the league once De Zerbi was there. So I think you need to start with at least 2 Brighton players, no matter what. They're just out there. They're reliable. I think they're going to progress even more as a team. I don't think somebody like losing a McAllister and then a Casido is going to hamper them, because I think they have replacements in place. They plan well as a team. I was listening to the High Performance podcast.
The audio crapped out, I think. LR. Plus, are you with us still?
Yeah, I'm here.
I think LR has been hitting F5 too hard.
Well, look, I think my view on Estupinan is great price, but Zinchenko is also 5. So I think going into the season, do I trust an Arsenal defense with good fixtures versus Brighton? Probably both. But if I'm also going with Trent and I don't have space in my back 3, then I think I might lean towards the Arsenal defender, at least initially. But I think, look, in isolation, it's a good price. Even Mitoma and all, what basically FPL has done is said it's only 6 to 8 months of sort of overperform or good performance. So let's see how they go, rather than saying, in Mitrovic's style, where they said they're going to do the same as they did last year, so we're going to price them as such. So they haven't done that. So I think in general, Brighton is quite kindly priced, and in good fixture runs or even in general, I think you can have 1 or 2 of these guys and keep them. My other thing with Brighton just is initially they have good fixtures, so they're I think top of the ticker first 3-4 game weeks. They're bottom of the ticker first 9 game weeks. So depending again on your wildcard horizon, you could think that, okay, if I have a short-term wildcard horizon, then I'm going to load up on Brighton a lot. If you think, no, my wildcard horizon is game week 8, 9, or even beyond, then I think you have to be a little bit more careful with Brighton, because they do have tough fixtures between 6 and 9.
And also Europe, right? Because I think the first 4-5 weeks, you don't have the European problem. Once that comes in, I think I worry about them a little bit again with rotation, travel, and stuff like that. So again, like you said, early doors, I think they're possibly one of the teams to target. The keeper situation is also interesting. I think Sanchez is pretty much leaving for sure. So Steele, again, if he's at 4.5, I think that could possibly tilt us over Pickford.
They have again signed another keeper, if I remember correctly.
Bergen.
Oh, LR, you're here.
Yes.
Let me plug you in. I can see you, hear you.
Correct. Verbruggen. They've signed.
Yeah. Somebody we were interested in too, if I remember correctly, when I was following the transfer window. Yeah. It's my job to butcher names on this podcast, Pras.
That's absolutely fine. Especially early season, right? We haven't heard the commentators say it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, nothing is going to beat Van Dijk from season 1. Like nothing ever is going to top that. So. Yeah.
Anything
Enciso,
else?
interesting. Do we have the price for Enciso? Is it 6.5 as well?
He's going to be priced 6 or 6.5 million.
I think he'll be below Mitoma and March, who've got 6.5. I'm guessing it'll be 5.5 or 6.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. The thing with this is like people remember Mitoma and March both were on very cold runs of finishing towards the end of the season. So I just wonder what happens there in terms of people thinking.
Yep. And that we can put a lot down to fatigue.
Yeah.
Because of the pilot.
That's true, actually. That's true. They do have Europe this season.
They
right?
do. That's what Preston and I were just discussing when you were out. That the first 4, 5, 6 weeks, they had a great team to target. Right after that, the fixtures tail off a bit, and you have Europe coming in as well. So depending on when you plan to wildcard, etc., you can plan your strategy.
I mean, the other talking point for Brighton is they've lost McAllister and most likely Caicedo.
Yeah.
right? So what is the impact now? Again, you can go to a system team and De Zerbi will find a way. Gilmore will become the next McAllister or whatever. Maybe that happens, but maybe it doesn't. And the second thing interesting to talk about is who's on penalties. Is it Estupinan?
That would be just. I think it'd be Welbeck or Ferguson.
Or
No,
Gross.
or Gross.
Gross, actually.
Yes, I was just about to say
Yeah.
Gross because I remember he's taken a few when he first joined.
Yeah, for a lot of interest in the community in Evan Ferguson as well. I mean, I think it's going to be a spot that's rotated, but if you're talking about upside, there's a spot that has got upside.
And he's going to be below Welbeck. Welbeck's at 6. I expect Ferguson at 5.5 tops. I don't see the same price for him.
I mean, do they factor in the upside for a player when they're pricing? Like, because they know that Welbeck isn't going to likely be starting. I'd wager he's 6.
Could be, yeah, because maybe they factored rotation for both.
Yeah.
I mean, this is why, analytically speaking, our game week 1 team shouldn't look as good as this, because opportunities come. The new Brightons emerge, or a player gets injured and a new value player emerges, and therefore our team should have a lot of 5 million midfielders, 6 million strikers. At least if you were to price it in an effective or a fair value kind of method. But that's not going to be the case. So yeah, if Ferguson becomes popular, that's one spot sort of killed. And it's such a cheap spot, then you can afford everyone else in the other 10.
Absolutely, yeah. All you need is one guy who's super cheap to just breaks up the structure completely. Bournemouth, Solanke at 6.5, possibly of interest. The new coach, I think from what I've read about him, a lot of clubs were interested in him. Iraola, very attacking, very different from what we saw from O'Neill. I think they might possibly be even more open, score a few more goals, very Bielsa-ish from what we saw from Leeds. That's what I'm expecting from Bournemouth.
Agreed.
6.5 for Dom Solanke.
That's what if they're actually as attacking, because obviously remember Leeds Bielsa, we were tripled up for the entire season, right? Because they had the cheap guys who were so productive. So I do think there will be a period when we invest in Bournemouth.
Yep.
You have Clivert Jr. also. I think he was super cheap. I think he's 5 mil. A player to watch out for.
What happened to him? I remember I don't know. LR will remember this. When we won the final against Ajax, Mourinho went to this guy and said, "Look, you come for me. You join Man United when you grow up."
Yeah.
Now I see this guy pop up for Bournemouth, and I'm like, "What happened in the middle? I didn't really follow it."
Yeah, I don't know either what happened in the middle, but hey, Bournemouth and Premier League is a good move. So this could be the jumping spot
It's
for him.
definitely an upgrade. I think from O'Neill moving to Iraola. I might be butchering his name, but to the new guy, whoever.
Yeah,
I think it's a big upgrade.
It screams of when Brighton hired somebody like Graham Potter when things were going so well.
Yeah,
it's exactly like that. Like Bournemouth have shown now in making a move like this and letting go of a manager who the players love, etc. as well. So all for it.
Next up, West Ham. Antonio also might be at the Gold Cup, so he might miss the first few weeks with potentially short-term striker punt there. But Bowen is back on the menu, much more reasonable price at 7 million.
And a great run of fixtures at the start of the season. I mean, they've got 3 incredible fixtures: Bournemouth away, Chelsea home, Luton away.
Nice one. You missed my Manchester United drop earlier. When I was talking about Brighton.
Nice. That's 1-1 now.
So, Fabianski is 4.5, right?
Yeah, Fabianski is an interesting one. But, you have the Areola problem, which is, does he keep his place? But last season we saw
he played him in Europe mostly, right?
Yeah. So I think if Fabianski is a starter...
And they have Europe again because they won the conference. I think they go to Europa League now?
Europa League, correct.
So that's even more competitive.
Ooh. The new graphics are up on the website. Like the players that they show on the top right thumbnail. They've got Soboslai on there as well now.
Oh, is it? I still see Madison in Leicester.
Just 2-3 more refreshes and you'll get those new graphics on the top right.
On the mobile, it's nice. Older image.
Oh, like it's not on every refresh.
It keeps changing. Yeah. I still see Lingard. So yeah, there's still some time.
Yeah. I mean, before we talk about more players, let's take a little break. So, Pras, I mean, you've always done this little tweet where you talk about the life cycle of a draft. Like, what happens in your head, and how does preseason lead to your team progressing, and what's going to happen with FPL managers now? Why don't you take our listeners through that?
Sure. So this has now slightly changed because pricing has become soft. But let me tell you sort of what happens. Basically, The game is going to launch, everyone's going to auto select a team and then go, okay, I'm not going to tinker with this because ultimately preseason, so many major transfers to happen, things will change. So why am I going to bother tinkering, right? So you leave it and you go, okay, I'm not going to do anything with my auto select. But then you go on Twitter and you start seeing people sharing a second draft, and they go, okay, let me just make a quick draft. And then basically instead of going 2 weeks break, you go one day after, you start to tinker. Then what happens is you'll see this thread. Somebody will post a thread that look at the value that this defender provides compared to Kane. Points per million, or how many points you score per appearance. And then you go, okay, maybe I should increase my budget in defense. So then you start adding James, then you start adding Shaw. So you go 4 at the back, even 5 at the back. So that's basically the birth of big at the back in your draft evolution. Then what happens is your attack is still okay, your midfield is still okay. Then what happens is you decide, okay, maybe let me try to fit one extra premium, right? So if in old years, if you had Salah and Haaland, now you try to see, maybe let me try to add Kane to this draft and see what happens. This year it will be, let me try to add Salah and Haaland and then let me see what happens. So then you'll basically move money out of the defense and it'll come into midfield. And then basically you'll go into this vicious cycle of moving from big at the back to 3 premium to basically a more balanced draft, and you rotate until you see team selected by tab on the Premier League website, where you go, oh damn, this guy is 45% owned. So then all of your thinking is sort of going into this template, and then a day before the launch, everyone's teams all voila look very much the same.
Nice.
That's the cycle.
That's the cycle. That is the cycle. And I also think, like, somehow in a weird way, because I remember the season I went without Salah at the start of the season, where you are in life and your confidence levels and your grumpiness levels and whether you're irritated with life has a lot to do with whether you think this is okay or not okay. Like, I think your ability to go against the grain depends a lot on where you are at life also. So I think life in a weird way is connected to where your FPL draft is.
Yeah, obviously, your risk taking and what you look to get from FPL, right? Because ultimately, it's a game we play as an escape. If you want more of an escape or you're bored, like comfortable, so it's very natural for it to be so.
Any of you guys have made like assumptions of how you're going to evolve playing this game this season, or something you really want to practice?
I'm going to try to back my gut a lot more this season. I don't think I've done it for the last few years, not look at ownership templates as much, not interact as much possibly on Twitter. I'm going to be mostly more on the Discord, discuss with fewer people, fewer WhatsApp groups. And in general, I think there is, obviously, we discussed this beyond the point, this diminishing returns, right? I really enjoy the time off this past month. A lot of things I've enjoyed more, like, I don't have the distraction of FPL, watching your shows, movies, or whatever you do. Your hobbies, you sort of enjoy more when you can switch, gymming, of course, when you can switch off. So I'm going to try to switch off a lot more between the week. And then, connect again on Friday, not devote as much headspace to it, because beyond a certain point, this really superfluous. That's where I am.
Pras?
So, I think the way the game evolved is in the removing last season or even the season before, it used to be a game of patience and staying with the crowd. Like basically don't move, don't deviate too much, make your moves, be rigorous with your thought process, but you don't have to be flamboyant, if that's the word I want to use. But what has happened is, because there's a lot more players playing the game, now the game has come down to, so if you look at the structure, it'll be everyone will have Haaland, one of Salah or Trent. Your gains in the first 4 game weeks will come down to if you picked Saka, if I picked Odegaard, or if Zoff picked Rashford, let's say, just in isolation. Now, between those guys, they could score 10 points in the first 4 game weeks or 30 points because they're all capable. So you could find yourself either thinking after 4 game weeks you're a genius, or you could think I've lost this season out of nothing but sheer pricing of the game. So I think what I want to do this season is just accept that the game is priced in a way where there is a little bit less skill involved and more luck involved. Doesn't mean it's all luck and no skill. But I'm not going to bother. Like if I picked Kane as captain and Saka gets a 15 point or whatever, and it's easier said than done. Obviously, when you're in the moment, it hurts a lot. But I think you just have to have that acceptance that this is how it's been priced. I'm not going to have the top scoring 8.5 million mid. I may or may not have. I won't be a genius if I do. And I'm not bad at the game if I don't. Yep. That's what I want to do.
The dreaded V word, variance.
Yeah.
Exactly.
LR, you?
It is what it. Yeah, same as pretty much what you mentioned, so fair. I fell in love with the game because it got me reading and watching about football a lot more. So I think in terms of distractions, in terms of reading a random thread on Twitter, or there are so many distractions, and it's just so easy to just scroll Twitter, and you know you get what Twitter is feeding to you rather than you reading what you're looking for. I want to actually focus towards just reading about football and watching a lot more football, and then back my gut rather than interacting with people, letting ideas come from them into my head. I want to let the football and the reading about football and the watching football dictate the ideas that come from my head. Interact a little less with Twitter, spend a lot more time on Discord, have much more longer, elaborate discussions about the game I love, and back my gut. That's it. I don't think I've done it as much as I normally did last season, and it really made me
You
not
couldn't,
enjoy the
right?
game.
Because again, you were straight jacketed post the World Cup, the Wildcard,
Yeah.
doubles and everything. So that was the case for most of us.
Yeah. I think one thing though, I do think that there will be a fair amount of variation in the game this season because, at the face of it, outside of City, there's 7 teams who are perfectly capable of getting into the top four. And there might be some skill involved in deciding or figuring out which one of these 3 or 4 teams make the top four. And that's the thing. I mean, what sucks the most about the game, in my opinion, is the fact that you read about and watched championship highlights or spoke to a Luke, FPL Alliance, for example, and have unearthed the John Lundstrom or the Michu of the season. Like that's something I miss about this game the most, which is getting to know and learning about the newer teams, which the game in its current format isn't
You don't need to
allowing us
know.
to do.
You don't need to know. Because
You
let's
don't
come
need
back
to.
to what Prus said. The skill thing isn't as much.
Yeah,
You just have to accept that.
I mean, it's a different kind of skill, but I do agree with Pras. I think the skill required and the luck factor, I think it's inverting a little in terms of how the game has progressed.
And also content being out there so much.
Yep. Right. Let's move on to our next team. Before that, let's just hit a quick refresh.
4 p.m. is the time, I think.
Yep, it would make sense now. Another like 15 minutes.
I think we'll wait for 14 minutes. If the game goes live, then we'll hang around for a bit. If the game doesn't, we'll call the stream.
We already around 80 minutes in.
Yeah.
It's just
I mean, everybody predicted that the streams would go on a lot longer once Press came on. But in just to our listeners, in terms of what you can expect from us this season, we've sort of had a chat where we want to put out at least 2 pieces of content every week, and I think saying that on stream might actually enable us to stick to that commitment. So that's what we're trying to do from our side. We're looking to do a lot more content in terms of quality as well as quantity. So that's the one thing that we want to change massively this season. So just expect a lot more from us on your YouTube streams and on your audio podcast platforms. So make sure you're just clicking that notifications button, because it's just not the weekly podcast. We will do supporting content in addition to that.
Right. Arsenal, no runner-up tax at all. Very underpriced, I think, across the board. Like Jesus I thought he was underpriced last year at 8 million. I'm shocked to see that price again.
Same price for Zinchenko and Jesus is, I mean, it just doesn't feel right. I mean, they were priced for a top 4, top 5 team last year.
Ridiculous. Havertz is an interesting one. I'm waiting to see how the dynamic of the team changes and what effect that has on Odegaard. Whether Odegaard stays a bit deeper, Havertz breaks forward a lot more. Because Zinchenko will still be playing that John Stones trend, sort of like getting forward and out of position. So he will still be there and thereabouts in the midfield. So Havertz will probably be another option that might come to the fore, because I really think he wasn't used in the right positions at Chelsea. He's a great player. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's an opportunity for us, given the Arsenal fans that we have on the Discord also. They're a little bit of a cheat code in terms of how much they read about the game, about their team, how much they watch Arsenal. And everything that they said to us on their channel, on the Discord, was spot on last year. So that's the channel I'll be hogging, because again, like Pras said, everybody's going to have 3 Arsenal. It's about which 3 Arsenal you have from the flurry of options they are. And I think that's going to be a very important decision for game week 1.
I mean, we have the prices for now: Saka, Odegaard, and Martinelli, and the defenders and Jesus. So pretty much all the investable options. First shot, who's going to be your 3?
Jesus.
I'm actually also open to Jesus, Saka, Odegaard.
We
I know it
just
sounds a
had
lot.
disconnection, Press. I'll just pause you for a second. We are back now. Sorry, could you repeat yourself?
I was saying I agree with LR in terms of Jesus and Saka, but I'm also open to going Odegaard just to be a little bit more aggressive in the beginning because it's a price point where you'll switch around. So 8.5 is a good price. If I sort of feel Foden isn't right yet, or if I don't feel like going for a Bruno, I don't mind actually going for a triple attack. It's just that good and that nicely priced.
The thing with Jesus, I think the only reason I would pick him is because he's a forward. If I was given carte blanche, I'd probably prefer Martinelli over Jesus, at least until Europe kicks in, because I see Trossard getting sub appearances early on, not necessarily starts. And we've seen Martinelli, whenever Jesus plays, is pretty much playing like a striker.
Yeah, actually thinking about it a little more and just thought evolution right now is, given the defenders that we have that are offering value from the other teams, triple Arsenal attack has a ton of merit.
Fixtures are so good,
yeah.
early doors as well.
Fixtures are so good, it just makes sense to go with triple Arsenal attack also, because I do think that the amount of attacking impetus the Arsenal defenders offer is slightly inferior compared to what the Liverpool wing backs, Shaw, Chelsea wing backs, Porro offer. So, I mean, they're much more capable of getting a clean sheet. That comes first. But there is a certain conversation to be had there.
There was a weird thing last season where they barely kept any clean sheets at home. I expect that to improve as well.
It's and Timber, right? We were keen on Timber as well. And I don't know where Timber will play. I guess right back instead of White, and White maybe plays more games. So I think that backline will also go through a little bit of a change. Now, they'll be fine. They're a good unit. But we don't know yet. I mean, even some Arsenal fans think even Gabriel might be the one who misses out if that's the case. So TBD in terms of who else apart from Zinchenko. And Zinchenko himself has that Tierney threat, although even, I don't think early season that's going to be an issue. But yeah, that defense isn't 100% nailed at the moment, at least.
Correct. There's definitely more attack. And 3+ XG team at home last season. Same numbers as Manchester City and Liverpool at the Emirates especially. So I can get on
That's
board
the
there.
thing. It's like pricing Mane and Salah at 9 and 8.5. It doesn't make sense.
So now that we've discussed most of the prices, we'll discuss some more as well. When the game goes live, what are we looking for? Like any prices that haven't revealed themselves that you're sort of interested in?
We got Foden already, right? It's not on these images, but I think Foden's 7.5.
Foden 7.5. We got Madison as well. That was the one price I was curious about. Richarlison a 7 million forward now.
No, I think he's a mid.
Richarlison is a mid. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he's a 7 million mid. Yes,
Yep,
yes,
yep,
yes,
mid.
yes.
I mean, if
Right,
Kane
let's
goes,
move.
this is going to be a cheat code. Son and Richarlison, or whichever one is basically the striker, or maybe even both. I mean,
Both.
they will hog all those points, or maybe they're a weaker team. But I think Richarlison 7-0 mid is ridiculous.
Who's the new Spurs manager, Ella?
Pochettino. Postecoglou.
Yeah, correct.
We can just call him Ainge.
No, we'll call him Ainge Postecoglou. I got this one right. Thankfully, I've heard enough of Baker's pod, and Baker's linked me to enough videos about him, so I'm good there.
Yeah, Australians have a lot to make up for after the events of the recent week, but we shall say no more.
Yeah.
What a great test match! What a great series! But that'll take a whole other pod.
Yep.
Yeah. Right, City. A lot of conversation and chatter about John Stones on Twitter. Do you go? He's what, 5 or 5.5?
5.5.
5.5.
You go with him over the Chelsea wingbacks and Shaw? Where is that ranking? Let's rank the 4 5.5s. Shaw, Reece, Chilwell, and Stones right now.
Pras, you want to go first?
Shaw.
Agreed.
At the moment, let's say if Shaw is out for whatever reason, then I think Stones would be above the Chelsea guys for now.
Correct.
But not above. You see, they're going to sign players. If they sign Guardiola, we don't know where he fits in, whether he inverts instead of Stones staying back. So I'm not as hot on Stones. I think he's a good option, but I'm going to say still Stones and then James, and then Chilwell and then James. But these are all very close.
I would probably go Shaw. Zinchenko, I like just mainly for the price saving. And I think again, Zinchenko is out of position. I like him for the first few weeks. Those two guys. Then Stones and then the Chelsea guys. Just
He's
still
going to
wait
say
for me.
Chelsea.
I'm the Chelsea fan in the house of
I
just
know.
see, upside. I'm going to say Chilwell, number one for me. I think he's the one who's got the highest upside. I just rate him as an FPL asset. Then Shaw, then James, then Stones, then Sinch. Is where I am.
Maybe some more
I mean,
options will
I'm
crop up
looking for
with the
shares
prices.
update. I'm looking for shares price as well. If he's 5, that's also a great price. I mean, he was very attacking. He's one of those that
And
didn't
very
get any
underperforming.
return.
Like he had
Yeah, exactly.
so many chances. Yep, that's a good
And
one.
then Ake, I guess, Ake, to answer your question on who I'd be looking for in terms of price,
That's a
Ake
good one.
Kanji were very solid. If they're 5 million, very good price.
Yeah, that's something to look at. Right, who do we have next?
I think the
Well,
City. Let's just
midfield
talk.
first.
Yeah, let's talk about the City midfield. I think because you have Jack, Foden, Mahrez, and KDB there. Lot to unpack. I think
It
KDB's
is the
price
o-
is fair. I think 10.5 is a good price. I think it was way overpriced last season. That's almost like what 3.5 mil, less than Haaland. Fair price.
yeah. We've almost semi sort of priced him out of the game. Like, do I see
I
him
agree.
picking?
Agree.
Do I see myself
No,
picking him over Saka, Rashford?
or even a Foden, right? Because he ultimately is just
Yeah.
saving 3 million by going for Foden.
Like City again have to perform miles above the pretenders for us to go KDB, and KDB needs to be the main man. But what I suspect is what we saw in the first half of the season when Foden is fit, they sort of he's the one who plays closest
To the
to
striker.
Haaland as a second striker role, and that role was occupied when Foden wasn't playing by Gundogan. So they don't really have an ancillary person in the box, and it's going to be one of De Bruyne or Foden in
Or
that role. So
Alvarez. It depends if De Bruyne isn't playing. You have Alvarez. His price could
yeah,
actually be interesting because if Haaland does get crocked and Alvarez is like your 6.5, 7, that's again a game breaker there.
yeah. I mean, it's okay if it's a game breaker because it's about picking good options from good options anyway. So I don't think the meta in the game changes.
Right, but I would
As
still price Alvarez as something like a 10 because Haaland was completely injury free last season. Ultimately, there's two ways you could go with Alvarez: give the rotation risk and play him at 7, or just in case Haaland breaks, keep him at a price that still won't allow you to have like a super premiums in the rest of the team.
yeah, I think you price uh, him at 7, 8, 8.5, not more than that. In 10 just feels a lot more when options like Nkuku, Gabriel Jesus is 8 million. I think that just speaks a lot.
Yep, it's only if Haaland gets
Yeah.
injured then completely, then you just have so much money to spend, right?
Yeah. Somebody in the chat mentioned a great point in that 5.5 million defender chat we had. What do you think about Estupinan?
I said
Where do
Estupinan
you?
is great because in fact I would actually rank him on probably just after Shaw in the discussion we had in
Yeah.
the previous section because currently what I've got mentally in my head is Shaw, Zinchenko, and Purvis for my 3 defenders, and that's 5.5, 5.5, and you get like
Yeah.
possibly a rotation of 2 4.5s there. That gives you a load to spend in midfield.
So if you're really thinking about it, and how the game is going to shape up, you are going to have maybe one or two differential high upside defenders who could act as differentials who are not going to be very popular in the game. I think this case is going to be similar for your maybe second, third, fourth midfielders. I don't think all of them are going to be as popular. I mean, there are people who prefer an Odegaard over a Saka and vice versa. So that's where the game will be slightly.
Correct.
And that those are real coin tosses. That's what like Press said, that those are really the variance picks because they're obviously not better, but again over a 4-5 period, anything could happen.
Yeah, luck is more than skill in that situation for sure. Yeah.
That's pretty much all. It's Spurs we can just touch upon quickly.
Kane, man, do you think you can see us owning him at some point this season? Probably, if he's staying at Spurs.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wait to see how Postecoglou sets up, but otherwise, yep.
Son, considering for your
9
game
million
week
is
one
very
draft,
interesting. Very interesting. Definitely considering. I'd like to see what he says in preseason because he mentioned in an interview that he was playing with an injury pretty much all of last campaign. Now you'd have had 2 months off. So I'd like to see him have a good preseason. But at 9 million, he's definitely interesting. I don't think he can be any worse than what he was last year.
yeah, very, very interesting as well for me. What do you think, Pras? Somebody you're
I think
considering?
Son is like Sterling in a way where if he performs, he'll blow this price out of water. But given the other options, I don't think you have to jump in initially. There's other players in that price bracket where you can go and then see. But I think, yeah, I could be, of course, never write off Son.
Yeah, I can already think about most people saying, let's play safe with our Arsenal assets in terms of attack for guaranteed returns, and then see which of these ones that we're not sure about, we want to jump on as the season progresses.
I really don't think
Absolutely.
Kane will stay though.
Yeah.
Bayern
I
will
don't
just suits everyone. You're saying,
Yeah,
Pras?
it depends on the conversation Postecoglou and Kane have. I think that's lined up first thing when they
I
have.
think he should move because now he's pretty much at the time in his career where he's got what 3-4 years, maybe 2-3 years left at his peak. The same similar with Mount, right? These guys, you need to sort of leave your comfort zone. You need to sort of leave to some different pastures to really evolve and go to the next level. Like I was sad when Mount left, but at the same time I was sort of happy because I think he deserves that next step in progression in your career. If you're going to stay at your homegrown club the whole time, you sort of pigeonholed a little bit mentally and almost as a player. Like, Mount almost became, oh, he's in the team because he's a Chelsea boy, because he's a Lampard boy. Not because, didn't become about him as a player.
Yeah. I mean, for Spurs, Porro is interesting, right? 5.0.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about him again. I guess we'll do a defenders like, you've done in the past, defenders, midfielders with some data and stuff. But I think Porro had some amazing stats last few game weeks.
Yeah, I think Baker mentioned on his pod, right? It's all about which front five have what roles under Postecoglou, because he likes to attack within a five. Now, if Kane is playing in the field, is Son going to be more as a second striker, or is he going to be playing wide? I think that dictates whether we're going to be interested in him. And similarly, he's definitely expecting Porro to be a part of the front five on the right hand side. So he almost is sure that Porro is going to be in his team at 5 million. So very, very interesting. Again, options are there in defense if you really think about it. It's too many options. There's too many good options there.
Let's just skim through the last few real quick. Let's Villa. I think Villa Martinez is possibly too high. I think he's 5. Ramsey's injured.
Great transfer window for them.
Great window.
Like the
Absolutely.
two signings that they made, Tielemans and Pau Torres, really good upgrades in key positions. Like it. Really, really like it. And expecting big things from them this season. Watkins could be an under the radar differential early season, given they have Everton and Burnley in game week 2 and 3. So, not many people I'm expecting to go there.
Moreno too at 5. I think Emery's wing backs
good.
is always interesting.
I mean, they've been priced as a good team, basically. Yeah. So they need to have a good run of fixtures and opportunity needs to arise. But otherwise, because of, again, soft pricing, top 6, it's hard. Why would you go Watkins? You could, but you'd go Jesus if you had 8 million. Why would you go Martinez if you had 5 million? You would go Ramsdale or someone else. Basically, that's the issue.
Move on to another Midland side, Wolves. There's just 4.5 defenders possibly there. Not much otherwise really talk about.
Nothing to talk about right now.
Brentford, I think we can spend a little bit of time on before wrapping up. Wissa and Bumo are both interesting. And I think Wissa a bit more so because he's a forward. I have less forward options in my mind right now. Midfield seems pretty stacked already. 6 million is good for Wissa.
Yeah. Fulham, Palace, Bournemouth, 3-4, 2-3-4. That's a good run of fixtures for a team like Bournemouth. Brentford. Yeah, definitely interested. I think for that 6.5 million slot, they're going to be the template pick for either the third striker or the fourth, fifth midfield slot.
Even as a rotation, they had the 5th few goals conceded at home last season.
Pras, interested?
Definitely. But I think, personally, obviously this is early days, right? I think they will sign someone and then the whole structure is an unknown, because Wissa is interesting because he plays, even if they play 4-3-3, he's the central guy if Tony is not playing. Mbumo is actually on the flank. It's only when they play 5-3-2 when they have Wissa and Mbumo starting. So if they sign a striker, then it goes back to the question, how do the dynamics change? Because not every striker can be as good as a Tony. But I think as of now, I agree that it's a good shout. Both are good shouts.
Okay, where is loading? It's taking a little extra time to load now.
Server error.
Okay, it's happening.
So the game has crashed, basically.
The game has crashed before it launched.
Or it's loading again. Meanwhile, Pras, could you talk us through this structure image you sent us?
Yes, of course. At the risk of my game week ID, yes. I will talk through this.
One competitor less.
I'm just refreshing.
I think
it's again loading.
It is loading now. I think it is no server error.
So again.
But now
Okay,
it feels
I'm gonna
close.
start.
It feels close. Pras, could you start? I have one less person to compete with then.
Yes. Okay, guys. Okay, so this is a table. This is a table that we've created basically to think through the different price points that we have in the game, right? And if I see you guys not nodding and just refreshing, then I'm gonna stop talking.
No, I promise.
I'm listening.
I will promise. I will say plus loading go
Yeah.
This is
sign up.
Exactly.
So structurally, right now, what we've talked about is there's a lot of good 5.5 defenders. There's a lot of 8.5 9 million midfielders. There's good 4.5 goalkeepers. So the four different structures that I see people going with is basically having Trent and Haaland, having Salah and Haaland, having just Haaland, or having all three. So obviously, I think having all three, you can see that the sacrifices needed in that structure are too high because you can't have a good second defender apart from Trent, and you'll have to play four at the back. You can't have a good third midfielder or a fourth midfielder. And even if you do, that's like a 6 million-ish mid. And then even your attacker is a 6 million. So I think row 4 will be, or column 4 will be the least popular, where you have all three. F5. Then you
Yeah,
go to the then you
Still
go to
updating. It's back to the old page.
then you go to the structure where you have either Trent or Salah. And I think the most popular, at least I'm seeing in the very original, very initial templates on Twitter, is basically Trent and Haaland. And it makes sense because you can have in this structure you can have Trent, but also afford a 5.5 million defender, like we've talked about. You can have another 5 million defender. So people are talking about this template of Trent, Shaw, Zinchenko. You can do that in this. In your midfield, you can have basically two 8.5. So let's say you can have Bruno, you can have Saka, and a 9 million like a Rashford, and still have the two 6.5s like the Mitomas, Marches, and Mbumos. And then attack, you can have an Nkuku and a Haaland. This is the most popular template that you are seeing at the moment. But the idea of this is you can actually think through different structures. So let's say if you were to sacrifice a Trent and say, I don't think there is clean sheets there, and I don't know how Szoboszlai impacts him, I can go Salah and Haaland. And honestly, Salah will be under 20% owned this year. So this is your opportunity if you think that he will really thrive under the double eight system. You can have a setup where in defense you have a 5.5 million defender and another 5 million defender. So those are your three. So let's say, for example, a Stupinian, Ake, or Poro, and a Shaw. I think those are three elite good defenders that you can have instead of a Trent. Affords you a Salah.
That's
Affords
a good.
you a Exactly. Affords you a Salah, affords you a Rashford, a Saka, two 6.5 million. And the only sacrifice here compared to the Trent one is basically you've obviously downgraded the Trent position and a second striker position, which is instead of a Jesus, you now have a 6 million guy. Maybe Ivan Ferguson becomes popular, or a Solanke or someone like that. So I think people will gravitate also to looking at these structures. Maybe, I talked about the whole, you go through this vicious cycle. So people will come to this draft at some point, I think. And then there's a third interesting draft, which is basically you say, I'm not backing Liverpool and I'm going to have just Haaland. And what can you do with that money? I think essentially what you can do with that money is you can say, instead of Trent, I'm going to have Shaw. And instead of an Mbumo, I'm going to have Rashford. So then people will start thinking, do I need Trent if I can get Rashford plus an elite defender like Shaw or James? So James and Rashford versus Trent and Mbumo. That will be other cycle of iteration that you'll go through. So very big picture. That was basically at least, our first thoughts in terms of structure, price points, in terms of how players have been priced.
That's a great slide. I was initially not considering Salah at all, but you can afford a pretty good team that you'd be happy with going with Mo Salah as a very handy differential early season. And you know what it takes, right? It takes Salah scoring 3 goals and getting 2 assists in the last 2 preseason games of the year, and the template changes like this.
Absolutely.
Or 1 6 million forward that you have in that Salah structure to put their hand up. Let's say Ivan Ferguson has started all the preseason games. People won't want a Jesus. So now you have money, and then people will start thinking about it more. So those people getting depressed with templates, there are still a lot of structures. And within each, now our job between now and the deadline is to now zoom in on these 5.5, 4.5 defenders, in the 6.5 midfielders, the 8.5, 9 million midfielders, and the strikers, so that we can narrow it down.
Yep. That's a great slide. I think I'd probably save that just in terms of understanding what structure is, guys. So be happy to take a screenshot right now. I think that will help you. Yeah, do that. Share it on the Discord as well. Yep. Right. Do we want to call it a day, guys?
Let's call
I
it a day.
think
I've
we
lost
should.
my voice practically.
All right, guys. Just want to say, make sure you're refreshing after this. Don't wait for dinner. Uh, don't wait for your evening snack. Tell the family to just mind their own business. Nothing else is as important. Happy tinkering, and we'll see you soon. Any last words, boys?
Imagine.
One thing for me, I think, look, this season we're going to do competitions for subscribers, for members on Discord. We're going to do a lot of good stuff. So if we can have people sign up, both subscribe to the channel as well as sign up to the Patreon, I think that's an important thing. Do it now, because now is when a lot of the juices will be flowing. We are thinking through a lot of things to do for everyone. So if you can, please do join. We have high ambitions for what we want to do this season. So that's all I wanted to sort of close with.
Fantastic. Great seeing you, boys. I'll be seeing you all again soon. It's been too long.
Yes. Take care
Great.
and happy tinkering. Bye-bye.
Happy F5.
Okay, just a prediction. Do we see new chips or do we see the same chips?
Nah, I don't see the chips changing.
Nothing.
Nothing at all. Cool. We'll see. Take care, guys.
So,
Bye-bye.
yeah.
Bye.